Hello, everyone. Welcome back to St. Louis Teens. Today we have with us Silpa Kaza, who is an expert in solid waste management and low carbon planning in cities. She works with the World Bank and several countries around the globe. So, Silpa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to go into sustainability solutions?
Thank you so much for having me, Sri, and inviting me. I'm really excited to be on St. Louis Teens. So I would say that I grew up in St. Louis, and I've been interested in international development and sustainability issues probably because of my upbringing as a child of immigrant parents and having a brother and parents who were pretty socially conscious, and then having the trips back to India and seeing the differences on many levels. And I would say that for waste management, I became very passionate about it when I lived in India working for an environmental nonprofit, working on waste and water issues. And there, waste was just in your face. So you were stepping on garbage, waste was being burned, animals were eating the garbage, and then there are also informal workers that were recycling and kind of involved in within the waste system
Right.
that were stigmatized. So I think all of these issues kind of captured me.
So, why is waste management so important to each and every single one of us, and not just necessarily those in difficult situations?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's very important from a public health perspective, and that's really how waste management got started as a concept. But also environmental aspects. I mean, we want to minimize the impact that we're having on the environment from our waste management, and then also kind of resource extraction. Right now, we're estimating that we're going to increase our waste generation by 70% over the
Wow.
next 30 years, and that's more than double population growth.
Oh,
So
really?
it's really yeah. So we really need to be thinking now. Otherwise, we're going to continue on this lifestyle where we keep increasing waste and consumption with income.
So, what can teenagers, sort of the people who, might be in coming into the world into the future and going into jobs, what can they do to manage waste personally and in their families?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you can think about it in a couple of different ways. So of course, consuming less. Second would be like thinking about how to minimize whenever you are consuming. So whether that's having a cloth bag or a thermos, or thinking about like do you need what additional packaging you need or don't need when you're purchasing something, and then also diverting waste. So that's recycling. It could be looking up, local composting options. Sometimes in bigger cities, they're pretty easy ways um, to to donate your food waste or organic waste. So yeah, so those are some ways.
So, is there anything that you personally do, and what would those be to sort of, give an example for others to follow?
Yeah, I would say maybe beyond some of the typical things a lot of people do, I carry around collapsible Tupperware. So when I eat out at restaurants and I have leftovers, I don't need a takeout container or a bag. I can just put food into my own container. I'm really fortunate in DC because our farmers markets take organic waste. So I keep a bag in my freezer and I put all my food waste in the bag and then just take it every so often to the farmers market. So I don't know if St. Louis has anything like that. But those are two things. Yeah.
And I know you were an alum of St. Louis Public Schools. So, from your experience there, what do you think those schools can do, to help manage solid waste and to work towards being low carbon schools?
Yeah, from a low carbon perspective, I mean, probably the most emissions are coming from electricity in the school, if I had to guess, and then probably also the transportation to and from school. So those are just two things to be more aware of. But Yeah, but I haven't been in St. Louis public schools in a while, so I'm also sure that the schools are more efficient now and stuff. And then from a waste perspective, just recycling, which I think schools should do. Organize um, you could organize pickups or drop-offs with food banks for leftover food from your cafeterias. You could think about on-site composting options, or having like a local company come pick up your food waste. Um, Another thing could be to have like more sustainable dishware on campus, but I know there are also kind of constraints around that, given the space and the availability of other services. But those are some thoughts.
So I think in our political landscape in the U.S. right now, there is a lot of political debate on climate change policies, particularly, especially during our presidential debates. In your personal opinion, what is our government's role in climate change, and what should voters be specifically looking for, especially if they're looking forward to maybe cutting down carbon emissions?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't always make economic sense, unfortunately, to have kind of low carbon options, and so I do think the government needs to play a bigger role, and I think that whether that's through kind of policy mandates or having subsidies or other financial incentives.
And France had actually previously banned unsold food and clothing waste and recently banned single use plastic as well. So, are we at the point that we should be moving towards enforcing mechanisms such as the ones that France is doing? And, following on that, would they work and do they work?
Yeah, that's a great question. It completely depends on the country, to be honest. I would say that generally we have seen that financial incentives help. So it's a kind of polluter pays policy that whoever is generating more should be paying more. In Japan, you pay more to dispose of residual waste than you do for recycling. Or like in the EU, they have a lot of targets related to waste management that countries have to recycle X percent, or they can only send a small percentage of waste to landfills. And so having those mandated to be a part of the EU has pushed a lot of countries to take action in waste. In Rwanda, there's a plastic bag ban that's implemented quite effectively because the penalty severe, like several $1,000
Oh, okay.
penalty, yeah, or even being thrown in jail. So it completely depends on the country. And in the U.S., I mean, different places are tinkering with different ideas like bag fees, or bans. I guess more in California.
So, thank you so much for talking about sort of our situation in terms of waste management and looking forward into the future.